This is Football at 4.
Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcasts, which you can get on all podcasting platforms. And check out their YouTube channel. Just search Inside the Birds. Adam Caplan's here today. I like today. We're going to try to let Adam take his first crack at the Eagles' 53-man roster. Who does he think will make it to Brazil against the Green Bay Packers? You know, Adam, we don't know the schedule. It was supposed to come out last night. They pushed it off to next week.
Yeah.
So we would have been looking at the schedule today. I'll ask you real quick. Last year they had 3 1:00 games. Do you think that they will get a lot of primetime games again and a lot of 4 o'clock games? In other words, are we going to lack 1 o'clock games again?
All right, a couple things. So I've actually sat in calls with the league, and just media calls and certain things when I worked at ESPN I was privy to. So when the Eagles are good, and they're going to be good, they're seen as we call national team. If you ask the NFL who those teams would be, clearly the 49ers are a national team. The Packers they're somewhat of a national team. You can go through the list. Obviously, the Cowboys are the number one in track, but the New York teams, when they're doing well, they are getting primetime games. We could argue how good these New York teams have been in recent years, but the Eagles are absolutely a national team, and they're going to get. Did they not get 6 primetime last year? Or
6 primetime, and then they only had 3 1:00 games, so it was 6 primetime. Yeah. Everything else was 4 o'clock.
Yeah, and I know my friends who are season ticket holders. They hate it because they have to get up for work the next day. You know, it's tough, but you know, it's the from a business standpoint. I know the Eagles business side. Talked to people there over the years. They love it. It's so great for branding, and it's a sign of respect. So, I would be, Mike. You know, you put me on the spot here. I would say no less than 5 primetime. I can't see it. Because I know the NFL's made it. They flat out told me they project this stuff back earlier in the year. They have to do a little bit of projection about how good the teams will be. Look, they don't always get it right. Obviously, when you start making out a schedule in February, March, and you go through free agency and then the draft, you only have so much information. They have to make a call. But I'd be stunned if the Eagles get fewer than 5 primetime games.
Yeah, that's coming out next week. They will release the schedule on Wednesday night, the 15th. Is the schedule released. So we'll have to wait a couple more days for that, Adam. Let's take a look at the Eagles' offense. Who do we think is going to make it to Brazil on that 53-man roster? We know Jalen Hurts will be there, but who will join him?
Yeah, so it's funny. So when Moshe and I talked earlier this week, Jeff had a great idea. We always do these shows in the offseason, but we usually wait till June or July, and it's a slower time now. The coordinators talked yesterday, which was great. There's really not a lot of news. So, you know what? Let's just start doing this. People love these shows, so let's do it. So just so you know, on Monday at 6 a.m. Eastern will be our defensive 53-man roster projection, where we go over the defense. And we did the offense on Thursday with Jeff and I. And, people can follow along at home, and obviously they can if you want in our YouTube comments. You can put in, what you think. But, Mike, obviously at quarterback, it's not really difficult to figure that out. So I've got Hurts, obviously, Pickett, who's going to be the backup. He's signed through 25. Barring something highly unforeseen, he'll be the number 2 quarterback for this season and next season. And Tanner McKee, Mike, I'm going to put him on the roster. Without the preseason last year, there's no way we would have made it. The preseason tape was so good, the Eagles did not want to risk putting him through waivers. And he's signed through 2027, by the way. Will Greer is there as a training camp quarterback because he's been with Doug Nussmeier, the quarterback coach, and obviously Kellen Moore, the offensive coordinator, in 2 stops. He certainly will not make it, but we're going to go 3 quarterbacks here.
All right, so no Will Greer, who obviously was, as you mentioned, with the Chargers, knows the offense a little bit, but you think he could be the odd man out there. Running back, only 2 returners. They did draft a guy. Gainwell said some things this week. Will that put him in some hot water? So who do we got here?
Again, we're projected for the season. So just to be clear, we'll have Will Greer here the entire offseason. But by the end of August, obviously, there's no way he'll be there if everybody else is healthy. So let's go to running back. Now, this group, they're not real deep, but with Shipley now, it helps them. Obviously, Barkley, who's signed through 2026. by contract structure, it's going to be hard for them to walk away after 2 seasons, no matter what happens. So figure he'll be here through those 3 seasons. Gainwell, this is his last year. He's the number 2 running back. Will Shipley, who's a rookie 4th-round pick, to me, Mike, he's got the edge on the 3. In fact, here's something we're looking to find out, and we'll look at this. The first time we'll get a real, at least an inkling, is a mandatory camp. Will Shipley, Mike, be given a chance to compete for the number 2 job against Gainwell? Being that it's last year, why wouldn't they do that? But hey, we can't answer that. We don't know. So that's something we're going to look for. And then a guy to keep an eye on is Ty Davis-Price, who was a former 3rd-round pick for the 49ers. This is the second former 3rd-rounder for the Niners. They remember Trey Sermon, who, by the way, looked pretty good last summer, but the Eagles they didn't have enough room, so he also got hurt. He went to the Colts. They got Lou Nichols, who's also a big back. Kendall Milton is got great size, an undrafted free agent out of Georgia. You notice, Mike, the size that they brought in here: Davis-Price, Lou Nichols, and Kendall Milton. We're going to go with Barkley to make it. Barkley, obviously, Gainwell, Will Shipley. I'm going to give. They're going to keep 4. I'm going to give Ty Davis-Price that 4th job.
He's got a guaranteed a little bit amount of money too, right?
Yep. He's got. That's part of it, Mike. Got $225 fully guaranteed out of the $1.1 million. It's only a small number. Obviously, they could walk away from that, but they obviously liked him enough to bring him in. He's a pretty gifted back. He fit that zone scheme that they wanted with the 49ers. I'm going to give them 4 running backs, and obviously we're in May here. We're not in August, but right now I'll give them 4.
By the way, I wouldn't mind being guaranteed $225,000. Just saying, right?
Yeah, I'll take it. You kidding?
Adam Caplan, 53-man roster projections. A lot of choices in that wide receiver room. How many? And because right now we know 2 definitively, and after that, all guesses are interesting.
Yeah, so A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are their starters. Now, remember, this is going to be a heavy 11 personnel offense. This is where you're going to see a complete departure. This is what Kellen Moore. The thing about offensive coordinators, Mike, and it's the same with defensive coordinators, they don't really change what they do. Kellen Moore's a heavy 3 receivers and 1 running back and 1 tight end. So the issue is who's the 3rd receiver. But what I would explain to people is Devontae Parker cannot play inside. He just can't. Paris Campbell could play inside or outside. So it just depends on what the down and distance is, and formationally you're going to do it. But we're going to put Campbell and Parker on the team, so they're the top 4. They need veterans anyway. Parker should be the top backup to Brown. Paris Campbell should be the top backup to Smith. There's your top 4. Aniyah Smith is the 5th receiver to me. He's your backup inside receiver up to Campbell. When Campbell plays inside, if Campbell can't play, Aniyah Smith figures to fill in for him. That's 5 receivers. Now, I'm going to keep 6. Jacob Harris, I know they're pretty excited about it. They put a guarantee in his contract. Talking to the Rams about him over the years before he tore his ACL. They want him to be a hybrid player. And by the way, right now they look at him as a receiver. He could play some tight end. You got Johnny Wilson, Joe Ngata, Shaquan Davis, who they give some guaranteed money to, and Austin Watkins, I know they're excited about. I'm going to give them 6 receivers. The top 4 we mentioned, Aniyah Smith, the rookie. And I'm going to, as of now, I'm going to put Johnny Wilson on there. Now, could Jacob Harris beat him out? Sure. But right now, I'm going to give Johnny Wilson. I'm super intrigued about it. I look forward to seeing him in OTAs.
Yeah, he's a big guy, Aniyah Smith, as you mentioned. He's a small guy. And then, as you mentioned, there's a lot of other wild cards in there. No John Ross, right? Did he make enough of an impression? The old 2017 first-rounder, John Ross?
Not only was he 2017 first-round pick, the Eagles actually, I put this out 3 years ago maybe, I think. I can't remember which year it was, but the Eagles actually talked to the Bengals, and the Bengals, and everyone thought John Ross would be traded or cut, and the Bengals, typically of them, they let guys walk, and they think that they'll get a compensatory pick for him, and I can't remember what exactly happened, but I know the Eagles talked to the Bengals about Ross many years ago, and they weren't willing to move him. And of course, they brought him in for a tryout. But no, I'm going to go those top 4: Aniyah Smith and Johnny Wilson out now.
All right, let's go to tight end, where I think most people listening could only name one right now. They do have a couple. They signed one, but Dallas Goedert is probably one definitive guy.
He's the only guy who's a lock to make it. I would put C.J. Uzomah, unless he just totally looks bad and he can't play anymore. He'll be on the team as he takes a Jack Stoll role. Jack Stoll was their wide tight end. They don't have one, so he will be it, C.J. Uzomah. And by the way, I know he's not a great athlete, but he can catch the football. He signed a mega contract, a big contract with the Jets. Let's not forget. So the guy could play, and the guy's been to the Super Bowl with the Bengals. I don't see them keeping three. You got to start making some sacrifices. I know Albert O re-signed. They want to take a look at him. Calcaterra is an athlete. He's got 2 years left, but he doesn't block very well. E.J. Jenkins and Noah Tungiai and McClellan Castles is an undrafted free agent rookie. They just don't. I don't see it, Mike. I don't think keeping three. And what you do is what we've deemed this called the roster tango. We've used this term for now 4 years. What happens is you cut a player if he clears waivers. You start put him on your practice squad. And you call him up on game day. You use some of the calls, the activation. So that I only see 2 tight ends here.
All right, that's going to be an interesting position. I agree with you there on who else. And if they end up bringing somebody else in here like they did last year with Albert O, he was the guy they brought in kind of late.
Traded, Mike. They traded for him. Don't forget.
That's true, yeah. They did trade, but he wasn't here. I'm saying this time of the year he wasn't here last year.
Mike, real quick, if you remember, it was being reported that he was being released.
Yes.
I can't remember exactly. From what I had heard, the story was either the Eagles knew he was in limbo, and then right before Denver's going to put it in, the transaction, they were in talks with Denver and got him, but they got to add another tight end for training camp. It needs to be a veteran who's been there and done that. I find it hard to believe they're just going to go into training camp with this group.
All right, this group is generally very strong, but there's a lot of new faces here on the offensive line. We know there's going to be a new center, which means there's going to be a new right guard. And also, that means there's a lot of new depth pieces because you got a lot of new faces in this spot. So picking out the offensive line could be a challenge.
Yeah, you set this up well. So this is the way we're going to do this. We're going to go to center. Juergens, obviously, this is a huge year for him, Mike. This season will ultimately decide whether they extend his contract after the season. So he's the starter. Matt Hennessy will be the backup. Hennessy could play either center or guard. He started mostly. Actually, I don't have the numbers in front of me. He was a starting center for them, for the Falcons, by the way, out of Temple University. He'll be also the top backup guard. Right now, we're gonna put him as the second team center. Dylan McMahon is on the roster. He could play guard or center. He's undersized. Left guard right now is obviously Landon Dickerson. Could be here a long time. Trevor Keegan should be his backup. Mike should be his backup. 5th-round pick out of Michigan. Also, you have Brett Toth, who could play guard or tackle.
By the way, Hennessy has started 22 of 41 games.
Yes, and he could play both, and he was starting center for the Atlanta. Boy, he had a devastating knee injury last season. He didn't even play, by the way. Never wound up playing a game. He went on IR in August and never played. Dickerson is your left guard. The backup should be Keegan. The right guard as of now, we're going to hand it to him with an asterisk. Matt Hennessy, we don't know if they're going to let him compete for it, but right now Tyler Steen, they're thinking he'll be the right guard. Darian Kennard also could play guard, and obviously Dylan McMahon could do it. Darian Kennard's a guy that could play right tackle. He could play guard. I wonder, Mike, if they'll let him compete for it. We're going to be really looking at this in OTAs, Mike. This is sort of one of our assignments. Right tackle, you got Lane Johnson. Mekhi Becton could also back left tackle. He'll be their top backup tackle, who Mosher reported on our show is going to get some time cross guard at some point. We have Darian Kennard who could play right tackle, and Brett Toth who could do it. Tackles Mailata. Mekhi Becton will be his backup. And by the way, his salary is up to $5.5 million, but that's only with incentives. The real money is $2.75 million. Here's Fred Johnson. He was the backup last year. He no longer will be that. He's on the roster for now. So here's your 9. I'm going to keep 9 offensive linemen, Mike. Juergens is 1, Hennessy is 2, Dickerson's 3, Keegan's 4, Steen is 5, Lane Johnson's 6, Becton is 7, Mailata is 8, and I'm going to give them one more. I'm going to keep Kennard. I get it that McMahon was drafted. I'm going to keep Kennard, who was drafted by the Chiefs, by the way, over McMahon as of now as my 9th.
All right, there you go. A couple quick things with Adam before we roll. Number 1, yesterday Vic Fangio mentioned, I know we're going to do defense.
Yeah, sure.
But he mentioned Zach Bond as an inside middle linebacker. Surprised?
No, we actually said this. Everyone said that he'd play outside linebacker. We said no. We said we were told he'll play both. What Vic said, we put this out when he was signed. This is what we were told. So what Vic said is he thinks he could play inside. He didn't definitely say he's only going to play inside.
No.
Well, he basically dispelled this narrative that he couldn't play inside because he only really played outside with the Saints. So let's keep it. Let's see what happens. But Mike, this inside linebacker job is because we don't know Fangio as a coach because he hasn't been here. I mean, I've talked to people who work for him, but look, I say this. Don't people jump on me because I know people can't stand this group overall. They go, where's the proven players and all this stuff? I get that, but they're at least deeper in terms of names. It doesn't mean any better. But Dean's back, finally healthy. He should be cleared by now. Devin White and Trotter Jr. and Burks, who's a good backup, by the way, who's played a lot of good football in his career, and Bond, who you mentioned, and Trotter Jr. And Ben Van Summer in that Giants game, his tape was real good, Mike. So at the very least, Mike, in OTAs and training camp, the competition should be actually pretty good.
Yeah, no, they definitely have some interesting guys there. And him mentioning Bond, like the way he did, yeah, it was almost like, hey, you guys aren't counting this guy like we're watching this guy. It felt like he was just trying to, say, hey, we're watching this guy differently than people are giving this guy credit for. Yeah, I think most people look at him as more of an outside guy. He did mention Jaylen Carter, so he said, we got to get him in great shape. We think he's off to a great start so we can play him a lot. That was encouraging to hear, that maybe Jaylen Carter has that he has a big role in store for Mr. Carter.
Well, the only thing, but Mike, the initial part of it was getting in shape.
Yep.
I would have thought he would have said that about Jordan. The fact I had to go back to the transcript to make sure I got it right. I was kind of surprised he said it that way. Does he know something we don't know about Jaylen Carter's conditioning? Because it was always about Jordan Davis with conditioning. So I don't know. I thought I thought that part of it was odd. But yeah, look, Jaylen Carter's an absolute beast as talent. But look, you're going to notice some. We'll talk more about this on Mondays Inside the Birds because we're going to break down the defense. You're going to notice, folks will start noticing this stuff, and the reporters will. But I talked to someone who coached for Vic over the years, and he said, look, we all don't run it even close to the way Vic does it. And I'm not saying the five-man fronts, it's not a five-man. Well, it is if it looks like a five-man front. But the 3-4 with two overhangs and it making look like a five front, Vic doesn't quite run it the way that Gannon did it, because Gannon, remember, never ran it before. He never worked for Vic. So, and now Sean Desai did as a disciple, and he didn't. By the way, he did some of those five-man front looks, but he ran it differently than Gannon did. So it's going to look a little different this year, Mike. I'm just letting people know it won't be quite what you've seen before, and it's going to be fascinating because the real Vic Fangio is kind of like the Penske file, Mike. The real Penske file is actually going to be here. I knew you'd like that one.
Vegas odds for Saquon Barkley, 1,000 yards is the number. Are you disappointed by that number?
Wait a minute. The exact number?
1,000.5 over under.
I haven't done the fantasy props yet. Do you know what the what is it? I think it's got to be minus 200. No,
minus 112.
Oh, minus 112. That's to me, and as I said on Sports School with Scott Farrell, if you're going to get on these future numbers, when it's obvious it should go over, how the hell could Barkley not go over 1,000 yards? I mean, obviously, I know he's got injury history. We're aware of that. But how could he not average like 120 yards per game with this? He finally has a real talented offensive line. The Giants never invested well enough, and when they did, they missed. They got Andrew Thomas right. He's elite, but Evan Neal's been a disappointment, and they're just not good on the offensive line. How could he not have a career year here, right? Or at least
when I saw the number at 1,000.5 over under, I was like that's why I said I was a little disappointed. Like, I hope 1,000 yards isn't all he gets. I mean, last year Swift gave you 1,049. I'm looking for a much bigger year from Barkley. Is that fair?
But absolutely. Barkley, Swift was fairly durable, actually very durable. And he carried the ball way more than we thought. Now, one thing I would tell you, and I have a lot of respect for odds makers, they're projecting. Do you know how many wins? You know what the Texans under win total was last year?
Yeah, it was like 4.
5.5.
There you go.
And it went up to 6.5. And I don't know why to start the season, but if you got it in June or July, it was 5.5. Look, the year that the Jaguars, 2 years when they came out of nowhere, their win total was 5.5 because I'll admit it. I didn't see it. I actually took under.
Not many people did, man.
I know I was wrong, but
Not many people.
Again, we're guessing now. I mean, on some of the stuff, you go with the information you have, and you got to make a decision.
I'll get you out on this. Did you happen to watch any of the Deshaun Jackson, LaShawn McCoy roast of Chip Kelly?
I will. I'll watch a roast. I'll watch over the weekend. I'm definitely going to watch it. I live this one. In fact, I had some reporting on this stuff, the accusations when I was at ESPN. Did a lot of digging on it. Chip was very mercurial. He's a different guy. I always got along with him, but he definitely, I don't want to get into, because I have to hear what they said first. I just felt he had, overall with any player, Mike, he had major problems connecting with players.
Yeah.
You know, that's the thing. I remember talking to Evan Mathis about this many years ago. And,
I'll tell you, I don't know if you've seen any of the stuff online, but obviously the two of them did not like him at all. They called Jason Peters. He blasted him.
He hated him. Yeah, I know that. I knew that. Look, Mike, there's some stuff that Moshe and I are aware of, how the players felt about Chip.
Yeah.
And I'm interested to hear what Shady and Jax talk about.
Brandon Graham blasted him.
Did he? Oh,
yes.
That I didn't know. Really, I didn't know how BG.
Jeremy Maclin blasted him.
Wow.
Yeah, it was.
I got to see the show. How long is the show? Do you know?
It's like 52 minutes.
All right. I look forward to hearing it. I'm going to cringe, but anyway.
It's like I think a lot. The one thing I would say, like the one question I kept asking as you're listening to it is, what, like the amount of dysfunction that sounded like was going on. And this is a team that won 20 games over his first 2 years. You're wondering, how were they winning with this? The amount of dysfunction that sounded like was happening in there, you're thinking, how did they not get rid of him sooner was the only thing I kept thinking as I'm listening to this. Now, that doesn't mean everything they're saying is 100%, but they seemed like pretty like Deshaun Jackson said he's been holding some of this stuff in for 11 years because he feels that his ability to get jobs and everything afterwards was completely tarnished by this whole situation, and that, that he feels like it's followed him all over the place.
Well, Deshaun's had an injury history, but yet Deshaun's dynamic in what he can do. But maybe Mike, and you know what we can do on Monday? We could put off going over the Eagles' defense. I'll listen to the show. I'll give you some exclusive stuff from. I actually have my notes from ESPN when I covered this.
Wow.
I actually worked from the Eagles from 2011 through 2013 from a media standpoint, where I went to ESPN, and I got to know Chip, and I'm always willing to tell the truth with Chip. I mean, he had his issues. I didn't know we were going to go here, so I'll tell you what we're going to devote a segment. I'm going to give you some stories that I've not talked about before. I know we were going there, so I might as well do it. It's like I'm sitting on the stuff. I have nothing to do with it. So there's some stuff that went on that year, and I have no problem with Chip. I mean, I know the way he treated people. No one worse in my career connected with players than Chip Kelly. I will tell you that. That's my one major negative. And I hope Chip learned about that. I have no idea. I haven't really talked to him much since then. I ran into him in 2016 when he was the Niners head coach. We actually had a good talk. Mm-hmm. But and we could say what we want about Nick Sirianni and some of his challenges where he's missed, but he gets the connectivity part. That is actually very important today with today's NFL player.
All right, we'll look forward to that. Watch that 52 minutes of, Brady was there to defend himself. Chip Kelly, not so much. He got roasted.
Yeah, right. The unintended roast, but Chip can't defend himself. Hey, it is what it is, man. I get it.
All right, Adam Caplan, everybody. Football at 4 here from the Inside the Birds podcast, which you can get on all podcasting platforms. And don't forget, check out their YouTube channel and right here on Football at 4. Thanks, Adam.
All right, man. See you.
Good stuff, man. We'll look forward to that.